Oh snap! Guess what just dropped, guys? There is a trailer for the next episode of Living World. I have no doubt that ArenaNet are dropping this now because they want it to coincide with the sale they've got going on with Guild Wars 2 right now, where it's 50% off. And in fact, the patch itself, they've said it's scheduled. It's called A Crack in the Ice, and it's scheduled for a Monday release instead of a Tuesday. And again, I'm pretty sure that's because they want it to coincide with the sale. But yeah, this is really cool. This is a really short window then. That means we've only got like 6 days until this actually comes out. They've really given us very little time. I want to do a frame by frame, as we always do, of the trailer and to see what we can pick out of the juicy details that they've gone for. As you can tell from the title and probably the thumbnail, A Crack in the Ice, we are going to the Shiverpeaks. All right, so here we go. Let's watch.
The fire dragon is rising.
Something up ahead, boy?
So this is Jormag's idea of paradise.
2 dragons at once.
We must kill them all before any one grows too powerful.
Run toward your death.
Oh my god, excellent. Shivers down my spine. Okay, so one of the main things you will notice from this trailer straight away is the music. Everybody seems to be super hyped about the music. This is Guild Wars music. It's funny because when I listened to it, I was like, are they using some other franchise or something else? No, it is Guild Wars music. This is from the Battle of the Breachmaker, Part 2. It's from Living World Season 1. And so I guess there's a substantive amount of us now who don't really remember that patch because obviously it was removed a long time ago. But yeah, I recognized it. I didn't quite realize it was still Guild Wars. It's from the Battle of the Breachmaker all that time ago. Everybody seems really hyped about that. The trailer itself, you might immediately notice, though there's this lovely music here which is being reused, a lot of the assets and things we're seeing in this one, unlike with Ember Bay, unlike with some of the other maps that they've added, they don't seem to have made too many new assets. And actually, out of everything, as we go through our little discussion here and as we dig in, I think really one of the more interesting things to look at is the sounds that come over the audio, like the voice acting and the dialogue, which we can presume wasn't recorded just for the purposes of the trailer. This stuff is actually reused and stuff we will probably hear in the actual patch itself. So let's head on in. Let's go straight through. As you can tell from here early on in the trailer, a lot of this stuff is actually just Ember Bay. This is one of the Ember Bay bosses that we fought before. We get the Ember Bay worm. Over the voiceover, they say as an inferno rages in the south. We're definitely going for an ice and fire theme here. They just show us that, but now we kick into some new places. And obviously what we're looking at here is a new, or maybe not so obviously, but we should be looking at a new Shiverpeaks map. So this is something I've speculated about for a long time. You guys might remember, actually, before the Rising Flames release, I was incorrectly speculating that we were going to go to the Shiverpeaks already. I thought it would go like Bloodstone Fen, then the Shiverpeaks, and maybe eventually the Fire Island chain. Well, they did us the Fire Island chain early, and now finally it seems to have happened. So score there. But the thing is, I might have been slightly off base with where exactly in the Shiverpeaks. And so what do I mean by this? Well, on the Reddit comments for this trailer, that shaman actually made a very interesting post. Now, this has technically got nothing to do with data mining, but what he'd noticed is that in Frostgorge Sound, one of the existing Shiverpeaks map, of course, there's tons of Shiverpeak area we could be going to, but at the very top of Frostgorge Sound, you guys might be familiar with this place, the Drakkar Spurs. Drakkar being named after a previous champion of Jormag's from back in Guild Wars 1. We could see, presumably, sleeping underneath an ice lake. Now, the Drakkar Spurs in north of Frostgorge Sound since the launch of Guild Wars 2 has been a weird sort of dead-end area, that there was a heart up there, but it seemed to suggest there was an exit to the map, or there was going to be another map even further to the north that they were leaving for themselves, but has never actually become anything. Very much like the Broken Bandit Bridge in Brisbane Wildlands, or Fort Vandal in Brisbane Wildlands, that eventually ended up leading to the Silver Wastes. There's actually a Guild Trek location that goes right next to this exit to the map I went to just a couple of days ago. So Shaman posted in the Reddit thread that he'd noticed since a recent patch between Rising Flames and now, they actually updated the map art. Look at this here, guys. Look, see, so here is the old art, and you remember how there was a slight change to the Crystal Desert we noticed when Ember Bay came in? Well, there was a slight change here too. If you look very subtly, you'll notice there seems to be some weird bug, some weird lineup issue that suggests the devs have actually been playing around with things up in this region of the world. So he's been teasing people about this, posting little hints and clues on Twitter that no one has caught on to for weeks now. And now finally we get this trailer, and it's showing the Shiverpeaks. He's revealed to everyone what he's noticed. So, back to what I was originally saying. Yes, look at the trailer here. We're definitely going to the Shiverpeaks. Definitely to do with Jormag. Jormag would be related to Jakar. And given what Shaman showed with that map, I actually think what we're looking at rocks here walking around in is we're looking at North or Frostgorge Sound. My previous predictions were actually that we were going to be somewhere to the south, around the region of Thunderhead, where a dwarf recently talked about. And I still think the region of Thunderhead and the Delgamore front is a very likely candidate for a new map, but it doesn't seem to be where we're going, I wouldn't say anymore. You know, maybe I look a little bit too deeply into some of my speculations with this stuff, with Rising Flames and the Fire Island chain. I had all these reasons we might end up going there, but it ended up very shallow in the end. It was, oh, they did a patch where they revealed that Primordus is awake, and then we went to the Fire Island chain because Destroyers and Fiery, lol, that's it. And now here it seems to be, okay, they've revealed that Jormag is active, I should say, and doing things, and I guess they're just saying, all right, well, let's go straight to him. And Jormag should be in the far Shiverpeaks to the north here. And as we go through this trailer, you'll see a little thing with a Kodan to do with that as well. So yeah, I think that's a big reason why this could be North or Frostgorge Sound. Here we've got rocks going through with Garm. No sign of her other pet anywhere, which is kind of interesting. But hey, so let's move on through. And she says, is there something up ahead? Presumably he might know something. They say a frigid wind howls in the north. Again, north of Frostgorge Sound. Pretty obvious, I think, anyway. We see a nice mountainous landscape. Let's just quickly go back here. This does look pretty cool. Don't forget, all right, that... And I've mentioned this a few times before when it's come to like guild halls in the Shiverpeaks. At the release of Guild Wars 2, they had these wonderful large mountain ranges and interesting places, but they never really got to play with that verticality too much since there was no gliding. Since there is gliding now, if they want, they can have really sheer, steep cliffs and a lot of interesting stuff going on. Maybe I'm looking a bit too closely, but a frigid wind howling in the north. Presumably this new map will come with a mastery, and I wonder whether it will be some kind of like updraft style mechanic where, except like a reverse updraft, there's a frigid wind and you can't glide into it unless you get a mastery, or maybe you just can't glide into it at all. Maybe we're gonna have like a sandstorm mechanic like Drytop had that rolls through the map. Perhaps I would say, by the way, it's probably time for ArenaNet to introduce some kind of large map-wide meta. They've already done 2 maps that don't have it. I think some of us are looking forward to that, especially considering the limited replayability of Ember Bay. But hey, maybe that's a discussion for another time. So we move to this next shot. We've got this wonderful looking guy. Pretty sure it's just a player character. The weapons and gear we see in this trailer, so like this sword here, I think generally there's nothing new. Someone was suggesting maybe, I think it's here, that this could be the special World vs. World set that's so far been unobtainable. Like, you can get a World vs. World exclusive set from World vs. World reward tracks, but there's one above it. A bit like in PvP, how you have the glorious armor and then you have the really nice flashy stuff from doing tournaments. And so maybe that might be coming with this patch as sort of an unrelated thing. I'm not quite, as you guys know, I'm terrible with Fashion Wars 2, so I wouldn't be the best person to talk to about that kind of stuff. But here, again, like, you can just see, look at these huge cliffs in the background, look at these enormous landscapes, look at this lake-style area down here. Reminds me a little bit of Lornar's Pass, actually, where we fought the steam creatures once upon a time, but we can't really get too much detail. There's a lot of depth blur going on here, and I'm pretty sure that's just something they've put in on the trailer. But who knows? With the Ember Bay trailer, there was some nice visual effects. Here again, This is obviously some kind of Sons of Svanir outpost. It is unlike anything we've seen before. This does actually look a bit like where one of the old farms was in Frostgorge Sound for a little while, for a champ bag farm that I used to play a lot with. But definitely all this scaffolding, nowhere in Guild Wars 2 and it looks anything like this. The trailer has drawn a little bit of criticism and I'm kind of on board with it. Despite the fact this is a new map, we're not seeing too many new assets. There's like Svanir Homestead, we've seen this before. These Svanir Corrupted Crystals, we've seen these before. Scaffolding, we've seen before. When you think of Dry Top, think about the amount of new assets they added. Sands Falls and all the cliffs and the beautiful red rocks and the Leyline Cave and so forth. Think about the same with the Silver Waste with the new kind of like palm trees. Think about all the Heart of Thorns maps. Bloodstone Fen didn't have too much new stuff, but it at least had a very distinct skybox and felt different. And Ember Bay has a bunch of new stuff too. This map, and I don't think at any point in the trailer do they really show new assets. Maybe that's not a big problem. I mean, we're in the same region we were always in, so maybe it's not necessary. It would add that extra layer. Maybe it's just the trailer doesn't show everything off, obviously. I just hope this isn't a sign that they're pushing out too many new maps too fast and maybe getting burnout, as I've talked about before. None of the burnout was obvious during the Living World Season 2 days, but at the end, the devs came out and said, oh, look, we couldn't put the quality in that we wanted. Does this count as, you know, not putting the quality in that they wanted if there's not enough new assets to go with new environments? Or does it not matter because at the end of the day, it's a mountain range? So here we get some audio. So this is Jormag's idea of paradise. That's an interesting term to me because paradise, I don't think I've ever heard. Maybe this is my lore foo failing me. The idea of Jormag creating a paradise. Is this how the Sons of Svanir revere the dragon? They believe that he's bringing paradise to them. I really don't know. I think that was Bram that was saying that over the voiceover. But obviously we're just seeing a lot of frozen, awful, terrible, scary stuff. There's this frozen guy in the cliff here. But I believe this is actually just the claw of Jormag. Now remember, Claw of Jormag is a world boss that we fight in Frostgorge Sound. It's a dragon lieutenant of the real guy, Jormag, but it's just a title. It's there are many claws of Jormag. We kill them every time that the world boss spawns, basically, as long as people are there. And so it wouldn't be weird if we're going even further north to see more of these claws. Think about how with Zaitan, at the release of the game, had so many dragons like Tequatl the Sunless and Blightglass the Plague Bringer and Ogravros the Moon Death, and you know, until you got to the point where you were at Zaitan's lair and there were tons of these things flying around in the sky, and what is, in my opinion, one of the most cinematic moments of the entire franchise. That's some cool stuff. Presumably, the further north we go to get closer to Jormag, the more claws there will be around too, just as there were more undead dragons. Morgemoth doesn't quite match up because he was a bit different. He was the jungle, so they kind of changed things a bit there. But I would be excited to see this. And if, yeah, maybe there's some big ones deep frozen in the cliff faces. This has always been something I liked, even down to the Holebrack animals carved into the cliff just outside in Wayfarer Foothills. All that stuff's really badass. So here we get a very short little shot here. We see some, again, like this stuff we've had before, I think. I think these are just like totems, like Ice Broods, you know, totems that pulse out chill and lots of damage. Again, is this one of the guys wearing World vs. World armor? I really, really don't know. But again, I want you guys to notice how prominent the fog is. Look at this frost, it's everywhere. Oh, it's going to be really cool if that's a big mechanic on the map, like the sandstorms. But yeah, so very, very chilling. Threatening to chill Tyria to the bone. Chill to the bone, of course, being one of the new elite specialization skills they added. I don't know whether that's a deliberate reference. And again, like, look at what we're seeing here. Why would they pick this as an area for the trailer if this isn't gameplay space? This just looks like a cliff, guys. It doesn't look like there's any standard playable stuff here. I'm thinking that we are going to be expected to be in these areas and we're going to be gliding around these areas. Maybe I'm wrong and they just were strapped for places to point the camera at in the trailer, though. That wouldn't be a very good sign now, would it? I'd also point out, and maybe this is a bit deep for me to go into, but if you notice this formation here, when you play enough Guild Wars 2 and you start to recognize the assets, you can kind of tell when they're like, when there's a cave around and you're just outside the cave and they're using different types of rocks to make up. And I sort of feel like, I don't know, I might be wrong, that there could be a cave under that. That's some really deep, unnecessary speculation there, though, I admit.
2 dragons at once.
Okay, so here over the voiceover, you guys might not hear that very clearly, but we do get 2 dragons at once. Again, I think it's Bram saying that. Bram doesn't actually physically appear in this trailer, by the way. Does that suggest something big's going to happen to him in the story? We're going to see Bram die like his mom. That would be ridiculous. I doubt that. We don't see Bram visually in the trailer. We do hear his voice, though. Again, I think it's Bram. And of course, he'd be kind of shocked because we haven't interacted with him yet at all this season. And so, of course, it's going to be a shock for him to know, oh my god, we got Jormag going on and we have Primordus. I imagine that that's probably a voice cue that comes in when we first see him and we first give him the skinny on what's going on. Something cool to look at here, though, and they're going to become a little bit more prominent in the trailer in a second, is this is a Kodan sanctuary. And I'll refresh you guys on the lore of the Kodan in just a second. You'll notice it's quite high up as well. And so, again, this is the same sanctuary. Moving on, very briefly from the Kodan, they will come back. Underwater. Oh, who's actually excited about this? Seriously, guys, tell me in the comments, who's excited about the underwater? Ember Bay technically had a bit of underwater. Even one of, like, the daily events. You could go underwater and kill this Drake if you didn't pull him out. I don't know what to think about it. Some people have been really riding this train of, oh, ArenaNet are trying to kill underwater. They don't like it. They're trying to get rid of it altogether. I think that's nonsense. I think they will always have a little bit of underwater filtered in there every now and then. Maybe a bit less these days than they did at launch. I remember pre-launch, they were talking about underwater being a really good part of design, and they might even have 50% of the world as water and 50% as land. They're obviously changing the ratios, but maybe it's not that surprising we get a bit of underwater. Also, by the way, is this a baby Quaggan down there? Is this? Because I'm pretty sure these lights are like little Quaggan lamps, aren't they? Or is this just regular coral reef? Again, though, if you think about it, guys, north, I mean, look at the world map right now. North of Frostgorge Sound is a huge lake. Remember the story here. For those that may not know at all, Jormag created massive lakes and destroyed and upturned glaciers and did all this ridiculous stuff up in the far Shiverpeaks. Areas that we could go back in Guild Wars 1, have never got to go in Guild Wars 2, save for the Eye of the North, which is this little tiny instance that's existed on its own. And he's made lakes there. Like, if you really look at that map, it sort of feels like there has to be a bit of underwater content up there, no? And look at Frostgorge Sound itself. If you're going to have the Kodan, if you're going to have sanctuaries, it kind of makes you think of big, icy, deep caverns. And speaking on those lines, if you look at the trailer right now, is this actually the surface or is this a giant underwater ice cave? So we're not just going underwater, but we're going into massive amounts of rock and ice and things. Maybe this is like some kind of fractured glacier. I think that would be amazing. But yeah, so I do really expect it to be a component. As for the Eye of the North, by the way, which I have always wanted them to go back to and to add on, it's like this weird, like, nostalgia bombs place for me now that always makes me think of the launch of Guild Wars 2, but has never had anything to do otherwise. Eventually, I would love to go back there as a real map and have them add it, but it's probably a little bit too far north to be included with anything here.
We must kill them all before any one grows too powerful.
Voice over there as well, never to forget. I think we're hearing Kaith, so Kaith could have a part in this patch. She keeps showing up. I'm not sure why she'd be in the far Shiverpeaks with us. I guess she's quite invested, obviously. She says we must kill them all. It's not really that interesting, but who it's coming from, I think, is a bit more. We get to see this badass engineer, flamethrower dude. Some areas, again, that are all exhibiting old assets, I'm pretty sure. I don't see anything new going on here, really, at all. We get an Ice Brood Elemental. This shot here is sneakily showing a white variant of some of the Heart of Thorns rock formations. Maybe you guys missed. Kaith says we got to kill them all before one grows too powerful. And here we see something new. In the way of an enemy, this looks like a vine-touched Ice Brood. So, in the Ember Bay patch with Rising Flames, you'll remember we had Destroyers now become Vine-touched, as Primordus has taken on Morgemoth's magic, and they've become planty. There were theories that maybe Primordus took the plantiness, and Jormag took the mindiness, right? Because those were like his two big dominions. And Jormag might now be able to communicate with us. And Jormag might be a bit more menacing in a way that Primordus is not, because Jormag would have this extra element. But actually, the existence of this vine-touched character here from the trailer immediately shows us that it's probably just all everywhere. They both have mindiness. They both have plantiness now. And I actually think the colors work really well here. I like this more than I liked the idea of a planty, fiery destroyer. I think this works a little bit better. So this guy is new, but it's obviously just sort of a reskin. I do wonder in this map, one of the biggest complaints of Ember Bay was that too many of the destroyers were vine-touched or shadow-touched. We don't get to see a shadow-touched Ice Brood here, by the way, which would be Zaitan's influence going into them. But I think that looked pretty cool as well. In fact, many varieties of Ice Brood look pretty sweet. So they say the storm is coming. Again, storm, man, storm. I'm telling you, there's something going on with these blizzards. I'm calling it now. And again, look at the kind of areas we're looking at. This is just cliff faces. It actually looks like there was something hidden in that cliff there. I haven't really... maybe that's just a tree or something, though. I don't know. Someone with better eyes might be able to look closer at that. Moving on, we have more ice brood. I mean, look how cool these guys are. I'm really not sad to see a lot of these guys come in the patches, because as far as I understand, there's not too many level 80 places where you get to interact with ice brood colossus. What this is, guys, as far as I remember correctly, this is what happens when a Norn becomes ice brood. Not a Son of Svanir or whatever. This is a Norn ice brood. These guys are scary. They are badass. They are seriously big things that you don't want to fight around with. In the background, we're looking at the ice elemental that's very similar to what we fight in Fractals. It's kind of, you know, the two rocky hands, these greater elementals. Olgoth, the centaur, summons one at the start of the human personal story. And then we obviously fight one again later on in Harathi Hinterlands. Well, we seem to have one of these actually out in the open world. I'm expecting this to be much like the world bosses we had with the giant worm in Ember Bay. And I don't know, the Ember Bay world bosses ended up a little bit disappointing to me. So hopefully this one can be quite exciting and we can have a lot of different things going on with us. Another character, the background, check this out. We have Claw of Jormag actually flying around and doing stuff right now. If that thing before wasn't the head of a Claw of Jormag, then this certainly is confirmation that there will be more of them around in the new map. More harsh cliff faces, a little bit of a greener area here too. I'd expect maybe this is on the coast or something of where some of the water is. Now, just before we move on from this shot, I want to point out again the gliding thing. Maybe I'm hyping this up way too much and I shouldn't, but seriously? If you guys think about it, the Claw of Jormag does a lot of flying around in this encounter, more than the other dragons. What do we see here on the trailer? We see one flying around. Is there a chance that now we can glide? There will be some kind of aerial component to it. Wouldn't that be incredible? All right, okay, I've aired it, and they're not going to do it, and they're going to disappoint us, but I just feel like I have to throw it out there anyway. That would be so cool. Pretty boring shot there, honestly. Not much going on. Flamethrower dude again, not too much. A regular ice brood down here. I think, what was this, a human ice brood? Is this what happens? And again, another homestead in the back.
Run towards your death.
And there we get some voiceover over the next couple of shots that I think is really cool sounding. We got a guy running, okay? And we also have on the voiceover a character, a voice we haven't heard yet, saying, "You run towards your death." So I think that's a Kodan speaking to us. I think that comboed with that previous shot we had of the sanctuary, and the fact there is a Kodan in this trailer, I think that's the Kodan saying things to us. What you have to remember about the Kodan story is this. They are fleeing the storms and the havoc that Jormag has wreaked in the far Shiverpeaks and beyond, even beyond the far Shiverpeaks. Places so far north we've never seen them in the whole franchise, okay? These Kodan are fleeing those places and have all been moving south. The Kodan are like the Norn in this respect, but what I think they're seeing us do is go north, running to the north, and they're saying to us, you're going to your death. Like, this is a terrible idea. Trust us, we know. We have been there more recently than your people have been there, and it is death to go that way. Don't do it. And that's what I think we're seeing there. Also to notice, here we got a Vista, obviously. I think everyone would have known Vistas were coming. But down here we got a Gruul. So the Gruul will have a little bit of a stake here. I wonder what these variety of Gruul are worshipping, or if they'll make them interesting somehow. Again, this is Frostgorge Sound, has lots of Gruul, so it makes sense they're still in the area. And here you'll notice a little glowing thing, I think probably associated with some kind of heart that might be in the area. Probably daily hearts. I wouldn't be surprised if they return, and I'll actually be kind of happy to see them return if the rewards are as good as the Ember Bay ones, and if they are a little bit more detailed than just pressing F on things. So now we have this. This is one of the most interesting shots of the trailer for me, and nobody seems to be talking about it. This, as far as I understand, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, this is a sculpture of Jorah. Okay, so we did just have in the previous patch Air's funeral, and we had, or 2 patches ago, and we had a statue be made of her or whatever. This is Jorah though, so think about this, guys. We're going north. We're going into the far Shiverpeaks. where once upon a time Guild Wars 1 players met with a previous female powerful Norn character known as Jorah. What's really weird about this, so what I think the devs are going for here is you can see like around her she's got like these dying plants. The background here is getting very conceptual, and I'm not quite sure where that means we are right now. But I think the idea is we're going north into very old, broken, abandoned Norn places. And that could be very cool, because obviously the further we go, we're not just going to find remnants of Kodan civilizations and whoever's trying to eke out a survival there. We're also going to be finding where the Norn used to be. And I think we might find that this is some old shrine or something to Jorah, the hero of ages past. And this is a sculpture to her. What's interesting beyond this, though, is we already have a sculpture of Jorah in the game, and that was something that Air had created. If you went to Air's homestead, and still to this day if you go there, she's made sculptures of all kinds of characters, like Snaff, for example. And Jorah is one of them that's there. And the models, as far as I can tell from the wiki here, you can see this on screen and compare for yourselves. They like line up perfectly. So, I mean, are the devs just treating this as... oh, this is just a, you know, this is just a random representation of Jorah from some Norn at some point? Or are they going to suggest that this is something Air had actually created? Air was up here in the north at some point, and maybe that's what led Bram there now today? I mean, I really don't know. But I think that it's most likely this is going to be, oh, these are just the ruins, and we shall see, of old Norn civilizations. Again, a little bit more. There's really not too much to say about this one. This could be in any existing map, honestly. Here we see the Kodan, finally. A Kodan with a torch, by the way. I don't know why I like this so much. He reminds me of the freaking dude that comes and accompanies you at the start of Tomb Raider 4 Revelations back on the PlayStation 1. But what could be going on quite cool, usually if you see an NPC with a torch, I like the idea that we're going into a very dark cave, very deep underground. Some wary Kodan has agreed to help us, even though most of his people think it would be suicide, and he is our guide, and he is leading us through these dark caverns, a bit like in Season 2, where we go into the dark cave, and Rox lights the way for us, does she? Or someone does? And again, I think this is our player character here. Lots of stuff with, like, placeholder player characters on this one, and very little of our actual characters, like Rox. So here's another one. We're walking again just into another deep underground cave. I think there is a big thing of being underground and being swallowed up by the ice. And here we've got lots of skulls. Could it be something to do with the Grawl? Grawl would do things like that. Maybe Sons of Svanir. And actually, oh, I'll tell you what, to go back, I apologize for this. I think what we're looking at here, these like teeth assets, I think this is like what you see the bone wall from Tequato is, and in various areas of Ori and stuff. And so maybe this undead stuff, maybe this isn't the Gruul, maybe this is death and shadow from Zaitan being infused into Jormag, and we're watching this guy get super powered, and we're seeing him really tap into what Zaitan once was. Here we get, again, another one of the rare new things. This here is a Griffin. I think it's supposed to be an ice-brewed Griffin, though, and I don't think we've seen any of those before. This guy is essentially a reskin of one of the established models we've had before. It is flying. Some people are saying, oh, it looks like someone's riding on it. Oh, is a mount system coming? Guys, if mounts ever came with this game, all right, it would not be in a random Living World update. That maybe the most you could expect is an NPC riding something like this, but it's just not that. I think this is just an ice-brewed Griffin. He's flying through in a nice little flyby. I love, much more interestingly, the background here. Look at these trees. That's a tree, right? Look how thick these trees are. This is beautiful. Oh my god, these look very cool. Again, maybe existing trees and assets we've had before, but these things are massive! This is exactly the kind of timber, wintry, forested area I would love to explore, and it's just so big and high fantasy. And it lines up with Winter's Day as well. This is like one of my favorite shots, and they sneak it in there right at the end. This is only up for a couple of seconds, but I love these trees. Love the thought of that exploration. Here again, we're in a sort of a stormy area. Again, my predicted windstorms or whatever, snowstorms that they'll do. And more of these big cliffs with the bridge back there. A guy doing a generic Guardian Greatsword 3. Back to the flamethrower dude. I mean, they keep cutting to the flamethrower dude. Is this just filler? It's sort of unfortunate if it is. Or are we looking at something interesting in the background here? I mean, this looks a little bit like ore even almost. There we have a really brief shot. This really is actually frame by frame here, but nothing particularly new that we're looking at. This is probably just a boss at some point in the story, another member of the Ice Brood. swinging. This here, we're fighting some kind of wolf, it looks like. Icebreed wolf, probably. You'll remember that in Bloodstone Fen update, we had a bunch of wolves come in, and that was one of our suggestions that we would eventually be going to the Shiverpeaks, and I think that's what we're seeing more here. Those weren't totally new, by the way. It was brought to my attention that ArenaNet were reusing them because they were a rare model that had only existed in early Norn personal story before that most players didn't know about, and I think that that's what we're looking at there. Here we get a nice slam attack from an Icebreed Kodan, I think that is. A little bit more underwater with some big fish. Big old explosion. And once again, a Colossus slamming down. A crack in the ice. And November 21st! Oh my god, seriously, it's so soon, guys. It's so soon. I don't even know how I'll be able to put out some videos in time talking about what I hope will be coming with this beyond what we've done today. But there you go, that's the trailer. I hope you managed to get a little bit more detail out of it now that we've sat down and watched it together nice and slowly. And yeah, if you were looking for the music, it's Battle on the Breachmaker. Quick reminder too, there is a sale, and if you are interested in getting it, if you would care to use my link in the description down below, that would support me immensely. If you want to pick up a second account so you can play on EU events or NA events, if you can't do those normally, anything like that, if you want to get in on this and, you know, get some friends to join you bandwagoning on this hype train or something, don't be afraid. But there you go, guys. Let me know what you think. Cracking the ice. Did I miss anything important? I probably did, because I sort of just geeked out over this and ran through it with you, and I'll fill you in on those details as the week goes along. Cheers, hope you all enjoy, and my review for Heartthorns should be coming pretty soon. Have a good one, guys. The dragon's dead, and that's it. Definitely not satisfying for me, even as Living World updates, let alone for an expansion. This was so little, I find it really hard to be excited that this plot's going anywhere soon over the next many years, because the expansions apparently have nothing to do with the rest of the story. Ouch.